Hey guys, this is Mishal and you're watching Q&A with Mishal, episode number 15. In this episode, I am talking to all those new entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting their own business, but they haven't got enough leverage, they haven't got enough experience to run a business. I'm also talking about how you can bounce back from your most difficult time of your life. I'm also giving the best closing techniques for all the salespeople. And lastly, I am giving away some really good, solid advice on how you can manage your time more effectively, right? So let's not waste our time. Let's jump right into it. Right here, what's my question number one?
The first question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone who is starting their own business but doesn't have much experience in running a business?
Understand this, right? Just because you have a passion for something, just because you have entrepreneurial tendency, doesn't mean that you're going to be really good at it. Okay? So appreciate the fact that, okay, you are passionate about something and you got entrepreneurial tendency. Now, if this is the first time you're ever going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to acquire the skills that entrepreneur possesses, right? So the skill number one, again, for the first few years, you're going to have to become a sponge, right? You are going to get into the learning mode. Number one, the skill that you need to acquire is marketing, then sales, branding. Okay, you're really gonna have to get really good at the leadership. And how are you going to do it? Understand this. First of all, businesses fail because of two reasons. If no one really knows about you, right, people cannot do business with you. So people fail because of the obscurity. Businesses fail because of the obscurity, right? And number two, businesses fail at overwhelming rate because owners and the founders of the business are not able to sell their products and services in greater quantities, right? So you're gonna have to learn how to say, how to market your product, how to position yourself in the marketplace. Number two is you have to acquire enough expertise around your area. And how are you going to do it? You're going to have to start reading those books, right? You're going to have to surround yourself with people who have a bit of an experience in that space, right? You attend the webinars, you get a mentor, right? And lastly is you need to have enough experience around that. Now, let me give you an example, right? Can you learn how to ride a bike by reading about it? Can you learn how to swim by just reading the books, right? Same way, you cannot learn entrepreneurship by just reading about it, right? You're gonna have to get your hands dirty. For the first few years, all you're doing is you are spending as much time as you possibly can learning the skills, getting the right level of experience, and then learn the leadership as well. Now, why leadership is extremely important, it doesn't matter that how promising your product and ideas are. Eventually, you can't do everything by yourself. If your goal, your objective is to do everything by yourself, you haven't got a business. You have created yourself 5 different jobs. And eventually, and once you do that, you cannot be consistent with anything because one day you're going to be spending a lot of your time and energy into customer service. The other day, you're going to be doing everything around sales and marketing. You are never ever going to achieve the consistency. So you are going to fail no matter how much work you are going to put in, right? So the leadership, one of the skills an entrepreneur need to have is to get the right kind of people in the team. And then once you get the right kind of people in your team, then you're gonna have to coach them, train them, mentor them, right? And how are you going to do it? You're gonna have to get your hands dirty, right? You need to pick up the phone and have to have this conversation. You're gonna have to attend all the networking events, and most importantly, understand and respect the importance of creating things on the internet, putting your message out there on the internet. There are around 350 million people just on the Facebook in India, and then there is 235 million people on the Instagram. LinkedIn got I'm not 100% sure about the number, but all your clients are spending a lot of their time, enormous amount of time on the social media platform. right? So you have to learn the marketing, you have to learn the sales, you have to learn how to position yourself in the marketplace. So for the first few years, what are you doing? You are just absorbing the information. When I got into the workforce, I'm not talking about when I started the business, but when I got into the workforce, I just kept my mouth shut and I tried to learn from everyone. Okay, I was learning from the person who was sitting next to me and who couldn't keep the job for literally about more than sort of 6 weeks. But during the course of his time, he says something really interesting, and I used that line on a customer, and I got a result out of it. Right? So you are absorbing everything from your surrounding. You're spending a lot of your time with people who have walked a similar path.
So the second question is, what do you say to yourself when you are at your lowest point?
Understand this, what really happens when you're going through some of the toughest times of your life, right? You are spending enormous amount of time either in the past or in the future, right? You are dwelling, bitching and moaning about the mistake that you have done in the past. You are feeling depressed because you just wish that you would have taken that decision, but you did not. You got lazy and now you had to sort of pay the price for it, right? So either when you are depressed, always understand that you're spending, you're going back and forth in the past and the future, right? Or either you're spending a lot of your time in the future, and every time you spend a lot of your time in the future, you're always anxious because you don't know what's gonna come, right? And in the present, you are always depressed because you just believe in your heart and soul that just because you had a really bad couple of years, that and right now you are in a kind of a rut, this is how it's going to be in the future. You have to believe in your heart that past does not equal to present, and present does not have to equal to future. Just because you had a really bad couple of years doesn't mean that you're going to have a terrible future. And just because you are in a rut, okay, you are confused, you don't know how you're going to put yourself back on track, doesn't mean that you're not going to find the answer tomorrow or the next week or the month after or 1 year after that. So you have to adopt the beliefs that really serves you. Understand this, what really happens when you're going through a really tough time. Now, the confidence, you're losing the sense of certainty. Okay, the reason you're losing the sense of certainty because the first thing really happens is your structure around your routine goes out of the window, right? Some of the decisions that you made in the past did not work out the way you imagine in your head, right? So you just assume that this is how it's going to be down the track, right? Your hope is absolutely gone. So what you need in that moment, you need some sense of certainty. You need some sense of confidence. Where do you get the confidence? Okay, so don't try and think that you're gonna have to start setting these massive goals to get that confidence back. Okay, start setting some achievable, realistic goals, right? Have some kind of a structure around things that you have to do on a regular basis. Understand this, when you are going through some of the toughest time of your life, your job now is to trick your mind into focusing in the present moment. The way you are basically doing it with meditation, I do it with meditation. Right now, there's a massive difference between doing a yoga and doing the meditation. Right? When you meditate, what you are really doing is, okay, all you are focusing on the present moment. You are focusing on your breath, right? You are not forcing yourself to breathe really fast, but you are just paying attention to when you're inhaling the breath and when you're taking the breath out. And when you do that, you are you're disciplining your mind to stay in the present moment. Right? That's the first thing that I did, and I still do it. Every time I think that I'm stuck in a rut, I go back to the meditation. I meditate like my life is dependent on it, because I know that I am spending obnoxious amount of my time dwelling into the past, and now I'm anxious about the future as well. So I know in that moment what is really important. I really gotta focus on the present moment and things that are in front of me, right? So what I do is I give myself some achievable goals to get some of the confidence back. So I immediately set a goal, something in the gym, right? Let's say that I really want to lose 5 kilo, and then when I set the goal All I have to do is get up in the morning. It doesn't matter how I feel. I try and keep my head in the game, head in the present moment, and I just try and finish that workout. And I do that on a consistent basis, right? So now it comes to the business, right? So instead of focusing on 10,000 things that I really have to do, I only focus on 2 to 3 things that really moves the needle in the marketplace, okay? 2 to 3 things that I can do today. If I do that, I'm gonna be a happy man, right? We just take one day at a time, and once you get a bit of a structure around few things that you have to do on a regular basis, not tomorrow, not next week, not the week after, or 6 months down the track. All you're going to focus on things that you have to do on a regular basis, and you do it with your 120% focus. That's it. And once you get a bit of a control and a bit of a confidence around that structure, that confidence is going to spill over in the other areas of your life, right? And again, as I said in the beginning, just because you had a bad few years doesn't mean that your future is going to be the same, right? Just because you are in a rut in the present moment, just because you are clueless, right? You are depressed, doesn't mean that the future is going to be the same. But if you're going to keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. So you're going to have to change your routine a little bit, get a structure around your routine. And once you get the confidence and structure around your routine, that is going to spill over in the other areas of your life.
So the third question is, what advice do you have for businesses that are losing a lot of sales? And what are some of the great closing techniques?
So every time you're talking about the sales, right, it's all about your perspective, and you have to have a sort of strategy and psychology around the sales. Now, if you do not have a proper psychology around sales and marketing, you are never ever going to achieve the target. Because if you do not have a proper psychology, your planning is going to be really, really poor, and that is going to affect the level of activity that you are going to do on a regular basis. What do I mean by that? Now, let's say that you are a salesman, right? And your target for the month is about 4 sales a month, right? If you do not have the 4 sales, you do not have a job the next month. Let's say that, right? And if you only have 4 clients in your pipeline, 4 callbacks in your pipeline, then you are never ever going to achieve that target. Because in the world of sales, in the world of business, client cancels all the time, right? Initially, they're all sort of excited, okay? They all show the sign that they're going to do business with you, but then something really happened in the last minute and they're going to cancel it, okay? It is the part and parcel of the sales business. The reason you are concerned about canceling rate because you haven't got enough going on for you. You haven't got enough meat. You haven't got enough prospects in your pipeline, right? If your target is to get 4 sales a month, right? You have to have 10 callbacks, 10 prospects in your pipeline, right? So again, if you have 10 clients in the pipeline, and out of those 10 and your target is 4, right? If 6 people says no, you wouldn't have any problem. But if your livelihood is dependent on those 4 clients and you're really sitting tight on it, what kind of a salesman you're going to be? You're going to be really pushy salesman. You're going to be really desperate. Understand this: sales at the highest level, transference of emotion. Clients can smell your desperation, right? The problem, you're always going to be really anxious. You're always going to be scared because you're sitting really tight on it, because your target is 4 and all you have in your pipeline is 4 callbacks, 4 prospects, right? So audit your day, right? How many calls you are making on a regular basis, right? If your again target is 4, right? 4 sales a month. To get 4 sales, you have to have, let's say, 10 presentations, right? For 10 presentations, you have to have 25 appointments. And to have 25 appointments, you have to call 150 people a day. Do you understand the math? right? So the problem with far too many salespeople is they have very little going on for them. They haven't got fat, juicy pipeline. They haven't got enough people in the callback. Now, the other thing I used to do, and this was one of my biggest mistake when I had just started out in the sales and marketing, when someone says no to me in the first 2 calls, I do not even call them. I do not follow them 6 months down the track, 8 months down the track. It doesn't matter what they're gonna say, tell me on the phone. Let's say that someone really tells me that, okay, they really like the product, they really like the services that we are offering, but it is a financial year or something really happened in the family, and they cannot make that decision right now, but they basically want me to call back in 6 months down the track. I wouldn't manage that call back. I wouldn't call that person after sort of 6 months. I always believed that, and it was my limiting belief. Just because someone is going to say no right now, it's a permanent no. People change their mind all the time. So the second thing that you need to instill in your sales team is to follow up rigorously. Follow them up every 2 months, every 6 months, every 12 months, 2 years, because you don't know when those people are going to be ready to buy your product. And 80% of the salesmen, they do not follow up. They do not have their own personal database, right? And lastly, understand this. People at the highest level buy because of emotion, not because of logic, okay? And your job as a salesman is to raise the urgency, create the urgency, because without urgency, desire loses its value. You ask proper question to find the information, to create the urgency, and that is going to help you to close the deals more effectively.
So the last question for this episode is, when you're trying to run a business, hundreds of things are pulling for your attention, and soon you're finding yourself doing things just for the sake of it. So my question here is, how can one prioritize tasks and avoid doing things that aren't important?
So when you are an entrepreneur, if you're running a business, or let's say that you're a top executive, what's going to happen is sometimes you're going to find yourself doing things that you really don't want to do, or sometimes you're going to spend majority of your time, 80 to 90% of your time, doing things that really doesn't matter. The model I'm just going to walk you through right now, it is not my model, but has helped me immensely to prioritize, okay? It helped me a lot to get a bit of a clarity around what is really most important for myself, for my business, and whatever that I am doing in my day-to-day life. So there are basically 4 quadrants, okay? And this is where we spend a majority of our time, right? If we sort of audit a day, we'll find ourselves doing things, either of these things. Okay, so there are things which are extremely important, also the urgent. They are really, really urgent, always going to shout for your attention, but at the same time, they're going to be really, really important. Then there are things which are not important, but seems urgent, right? Okay, now there are things which are extremely important, but it's not going to shout for your attention, not really urgent. And then there are things which are not really important, at the same time they're not urgent as well. Okay, so let's evaluate that. Okay, let's put things into perspective. When you have an accident, right, it's extremely important if you're not going to address, and at the same time it is urgent, so you immediately have to pay attention to it. When you are going through some health problem and now the doctor suggests that even though you're extremely busy, we're going to have to do the surgery, otherwise there's going to be extremely severe ramifications. So that falls into the quadrant 1, which is extremely important, and they are urgent as well. So if you're a business owner, you would understand what exactly I'm saying. Now that you have to attend this presentation, or you have to attend this meeting, and if you're not going to sort of address the concern, or if you're not going to attend the meeting, that means that the client might just go to the competitors. So you are going to drop everything that you are doing at that moment, and you're going to attend the meeting, right? If you're a student, we do this all the time. Let's say that your teacher, your lecturer gives you this assignment, and the due date is further down the track, let's say 15 days, right? What 99.9% of the students do? Now, the task is extremely important, but the deadline is 15 days down the track. So we are not going to stop. We're going to procrastinate. We're going to procrastinate. We're going to procrastinate until we got 2 days to submit the entire assignment. I have done it, but it is extremely urgent. I have to address it, otherwise it's gonna affect my grades. So I stop everything I am doing and I just focus on that, right? Then there are things which are extremely important, okay? But they're never ever going to shout for our attention. Our health, okay? For example, your health is never going to shout for your attention. Like when you're in your 20s, when you're in your mid-20s or 30s, your health is never basically shouting for your attention. It's okay. You can eat whatever the hell you want to eat and you're not going to feel anything. You have a metabolism of 20-year-old person. So you really don't care whatever you're going to put in your mouth. You really don't care how many times you're going to the gym, because you are in your 20s. But that is extremely important. But if you're going to keep on with that lifestyle, what's going to happen? That thing is going to fall into extremely urgent and extremely important. Then something drastic has to happen for you to even live. Right? Same way, team building. Your people who are working for you are not going to shout for your attention all the time, right? So team building, for example, something really drastic happened, right? And then you can't do all your coaching for that 1 week. But if you spend, that is extremely important, right? And it doesn't matter how big of a goal you have, you can't do it everything by yourself, right? You need a team. You can't do all your team building in a 1 week. Okay, like for example, you can't, even though you are extremely hungry and you're really starving for food, you can't eat for 4 hours. That's not gonna look after you for next 7 days. You can only have a little bit of food in a proper proportion every single day. Same way, you can't do all the motivation, all the training, all the mentoring in 1 day. Right? So they're never going to shout for your attention. There are so many things in a business that then, like prospecting. If you're in sales, if you're an entrepreneur, communicating with your clients on a regular basis, doing the prospecting is not going to shout for your attention. But you only have, let's say, like you are on your last dollar. Right? You have a business, you have people to look after, right? You have so many people counting on you, and you've never done the prospecting for about 6 months. Now you have limited financial resources to pay them the salary. Now the prospecting becomes the most important thing in the world, right? But if you do prospecting every single day, right? If you make that a part of your life, the first thing that you do is you pick up the phone and start talking to the people, right? Then it is never going to get into the quadrant 1, which is extremely important and urgent, right? But we struggle as business owners because we think that staying busy is more important than being productive. Then there is non-important, but they're gonna sound extremely urgent. When someone sends you an email and they're gonna say that they're gonna try and force you into doing something, but it is not a really important task for you, you can always avoid some of the meetings that you're having at your workplace, right? Instead of spending 45 minutes of your time writing an email, you could have just pick up the phone and talk to the person, resolve the problem in 10 to 15 minutes, but you wouldn't do it. So what we do is, because it sounds urgent, but if you put things into perspective, it's not going to have any impact on your bottom line. But what we still do, we spend 45 minutes to an hour, come up with the perfect reply. We want to give that person a piece of our mind, right? And we are wasting our time and energy. Understand that the things that are extremely important to do is going to take energy. It's going to take a lot of your time as well. But when you're spending majority of your time on things that are not important but sounds urgent, you will never have the energy to go after the most important goals of your life. You never have the time. So You have to completely avoid those activities, which sounds like really, really urgent, but when you put things into perspective, they're not important at all. And obviously, then there are things that are not important, but they're not urgent as well, right? Like, for example, every time we go to Facebook, we are just wandering on Facebook and Instagram mindlessly without any purpose. You thought that, okay, you're gonna take quick 5-minute break, quick 10-minute break, and before you know, you've already been on Facebook for 45 minutes. You go on YouTube to watch this specific video, and now you're in the rabbit hole of this gazillion videos, right? And before you know, you have already wasted 2 hours of your life. Do you think what kind of energy is going to be left over to do the most important task of the day, right? We all do that. So we can't completely avoid that, but you have to limit those activities, right? So if you are struggling to keep up with the most important task of the day, you have to audit your day, right? Where do you spend majority of your time? Are they really important? Would they move the needle in the marketplace? Would they have any impact on the bottom line? If the answer is no, get them out of your system. You do not have to do it. Find out 2-3 things. If you do it without fail on a consistent basis, moves the needle. It affects your bottom line. Spend majority of your time on things that really, really matters. So that's the wrap, guys. This was Q&A with Mishal, episode number 15. Guys, these are your questions. I'm answering them. If you have any questions in regards to high performance mindset, entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, branding, please don't forget to put your questions at the bottom, and I'm going to try and cover that in the next episode. Thanks for your time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you next time.